They sold my childhood home without telling me. That's the sentence I kept repeating to anyone who would listen. My roommate, my boyfriend, my therapist. The poor barista at the coffee shop who just asked how my day was going. They sold my childhood home without telling me, I'd say, and watch people's faces do the same thing, eyebrows up, lips pressed together. A tiny flinch of oof, that's rough. Because in an American family, childhood home is not just a building. It's Christmas mornings and back-to-school photos on the porch. It's the kitchen where your mum packed lunches. It's the hallway where your height marks are still penciled on the doorframe. For me, that house in a quiet Midwestern cul-de-sac was all of that. And they sold it. Without a word. It happened on a Tuesday, which feels disrespectful. Big emotional family drama moments should happen on weekends or holidays. Not in the middle of a weekday when you're eating a sad salad at your desk in a corporate office park. I was scrolling my phone, half reading emails, half watching a TikTok about signs you're emotionally attached to your childhood home, when a notification popped up from my friend Jenna. It was a Zillow link. "Isn't this your house?" I clicked, and there it was. My childhood home, on my phone, on the internet, for sale. The photos were too bright, stretched wide by a real estate lens that made every room look bigger and faker than it really was. Charming 3-bedroom family home in desirable suburban neighborhood. Recently updated kitchen with modern appliances and fresh paint. Spacious backyard, perfect for kids and pets. I stared at the picture of our backyard, the one where I played tag with my brother, where Dad grilled burgers on the 4th of July, where Mum once set up a white sheet and a projector so we could watch movies outside like some Pinterest-perfect American family. Now it was just spacious backyard. Open concept living room. Great natural light. My chest tightened. I called my mum. No answer. I called my dad. Voicemail. I texted the family group chat. Me. "Hey, why is our house on Zillow?" Nothing. I called again, this time holding the phone so tight my hand shook. Mum picked up on the third ring. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice overly bright in that way that immediately told me something was off. "What's up?" "What's up?" I repeated. "Our house is on Zillow. That's what's up." There was a long, terrible pause. "Oh," she said finally. "You saw that?" "Yes, I saw that," I snapped. "Why is our childhood home for sale? Why am I finding out about it from a real estate listing and not, I don't know, my parents?" She exhaled. "We were going to tell you," she said. We were waiting for the right time. The condo isn't ready yet and—" "The condo?" I cut in. "What condo?" My head spun. The words tumbled out of her in a rush. "We're downsizing," she said. "Your dad and we're almost 60. The house is too big. The stairs are hard on his knees. The roof needs replacing. The market is good right now. We found a nice little place closer to the city, near your brother. We put the house on the market last week. We didn't want to worry you until it was more certain." "More certain?" I repeated, my voice going thin. "It's on Zillow. There are professional photos of my bedroom." "Sweetie, I'm 29, I said. "I'm not 8. You don't get to not worry me by just not telling me you sold the house I grew up in. We didn't sell it yet, she said. It's listed. That's different. It did not feel different. In my head, listed and sold and gone blurred into one giant, sick feeling. I stood up from my desk and walked to the empty conference room, the phone pressed to my ear. Why didn't you tell me? I asked again, softer this time. Why did I have to find out like this? She hesitated. Because we knew you'd take it hard, she said. We knew this would feel like losing something important. We wanted to wait until after your big presentation at work, and after your birthday, and after... She trailed off. And after what? I pushed. After there was no going back, she admitted. There it was. The truth. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. You sold my childhood home without telling me, I said, each word sharp as glass. How did you think that would feel? I didn't want to hurt you, she said weakly. Well, I said, my voice shaking. You did. But at that moment, standing in a glass conference room with my entire childhood spinning in my head like a Zillow slideshow, it wasn't a story. It was just pain. I hung up on my mum. Then I did what any emotionally overwhelmed millennial woman does. I locked the conference room door. I sat on the carpet. And I cried over a 3-bedroom, 2-bath colonial in Ohio like it was a person who had died. Chapter 2. Growing up on Maple Lane. Our American family story on Maple Lane started before I was born. My parents bought the house in the late 90s, when starter homes were cheap and my dad's hair still had more brown than grey. It was the third house they looked at, the only one with a tree sturdy enough to hold a tire swing in the front yard. That's why we picked it, Dad would always say, pointing at the big maple tree. We wanted a place where our kids could climb. By the time I came along, the house was already full of projects. My crib was assembled in the room that became the nursery, painted yellow because they didn't know if I'd be a boy or a girl and didn't care. My baby pictures are mostly taken in that living room, the one Zillow now calls bright and airy, with its beige carpet and second-hand couch and curtains my mum sewed herself because store-bought ones were too expensive for what you get. As I got older, the house grew with us. The basement turned into a playroom. The spare room turned into my brother's bedroom. The dining room turned into the place where my mum insisted we eat proper family meals every night, even when everyone else's friends were eating in front of the TV. It's important, she'd say, spooning mashed potatoes onto our plates. We talk. We connect. We're not going to be one of those families that forgets how to look each other in the eye. Back then, I rolled my eyes. Now I realize she was trying, in her own way, to make sure our childhood home was more than just a mortgage. It worked. That house is the backdrop of my entire internal slideshow. First day of kindergarten, me in a backpack that covered half my body, standing on the front steps. My brother, Ethan, playing video games in the basement, yelling at me not to tell Mom when he swore. Halloween costumes spread out on the living room floor, glitter everywhere. The kitchen on Thanksgiving morning, a chaotic, delicious mess of casseroles and pies and football on the radio. The backyard in summer, fireflies blinking, Dad with a cheap plastic lawn chair and a beer, Mum yelling at us to put on more sunscreen. We were not rich. The house was not fancy. It was a basic American family home in a basic American suburb. But it was ours. Even after I moved out at 22 to an apartment in the city, that house stayed home. If I say I'm going home, I'd tell my boyfriend, I mean my parents' house. This place is just where I live. When you're a young adult, your childhood home becomes this weird emotional safety net. Your own apartment might be a maze of IKEA furniture and roommates and questionable plumbing. But your parents' house, that's where there's always food in the fridge and extra blankets in the closet and a drawer somewhere with your old high school t-shirts. It's the place you go back to for Christmas, for Easter, for random weekends when you need to do laundry and eat cereal from a bowl you recognize. Every American movie and TV show reinforces this idea. The childhood home is the anchor, the safe place, the constant. So when that anchor disappears, you don't just feel unmoored, you feel uninvited from your own past. That's how it felt anyway, sitting on my tiny city couch that night, staring at the Zillow listing like it had personally betrayed me. Chapter 3. The first visit to the condo. They moved fast. Apparently, they'd been planning this for months. They already had an offer on the house within a week. The buyers were a nice young family with 2 little kids and a dog. Some part of me was glad the house would have children running through it again. Most of me was furious there would be strangers in our kitchen. "Come see the condo," Mum said on the phone, 2 weeks after closing. "You'll love it. It's very efficient." "Efficient," I repeated, "like a dishwasher." She laughed nervously. I took the train out on a Saturday. The new place was in a newly developed part of town, all beige buildings, with identical balconies and landscaping that looked like it had been copy-pasted from a brochure. I buzzed their unit. Dad opened the door with a big grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome to our little nest," he said. I stepped inside and felt my throat close. It wasn't awful. That was the problem. If it had been ugly or depressing, I could have righteously hated it. Instead, it was fine, cozy, even. One open space with a small but modern kitchen, a round table, a couch facing a TV mounted on the wall. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Balcony overlooking a parking lot and a strip of trees that valiantly pretended to be a forest. My parents had rearranged their old furniture as best they could. The dining table from Maple Lane looked too big for the space, but there it was, the same tiny scratch on the corner where I'd once dragged my backpack. The framed family photos were on the walls, just closer together. Mum's favourite blue mixing bowl sat on the counter. It was like someone had taken the contents of my childhood home and poured them into a smaller container. "It's nice," I said stiffly. Mum watched my face like she was trying to read a weather forecast. "We're still settling in," she said. "The building has an elevator. No more stairs for your dad's knees. There's a gym downstairs. A pool in the summer. We're closer to Ethan now." "That's great," I said. "Come see the guest room," Dad added, too brightly. "It's your room now." My room. The guest room was small, with a full-size bed, a dresser, and a lamp. On the dresser was the framed photo of me at 8, missing teeth and holding a soccer ball. Mum had even put one of my old quilts on the bed. I wanted to appreciate the gesture. I wanted to say, thank you for trying to make space for me in your new life. Instead, I burst into tears. They looked panicked. Oh, honey, Mum said, reaching for me. We knew this would be hard, but you sold it, I sobbed. You sold the house. You didn't even let me say goodbye. You didn't let me walk through it one last time. You didn't let me take anything from my room. You just packed up my childhood and moved it into a condo. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. We still have your boxes, he said gently. They're in storage. We didn't throw anything away. That's not the point, I said. It's not about stuff. It's about there. The smell. The creak in the hallway. The way the light hits the kitchen in the morning. I can't ever go back there again. Mum's face crumpled. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said. We were trying to be practical. The house was too much. Your dad's blood pressure, the property taxes, the repairs. We thought, we'll just handle it. We won't bother the kids. They have their own lives. Newsflash, I said, wiping my face with the back of my hand. I am one of the kids. And this bothers me more than just about anything. I heard my own voice, the drama, the hurt, and part of me stood outside myself and thought, wow, this would make a great emotional family drama story time video. The rest of me just hurt. We sat on the bed in the guest room, my room that wasn't really mine, and cried. Eventually, Mum took a deep breath. Can I tell you something? She asked. I sniffed. What? When my parents sold their house, she said, I didn't speak to them for 3 months. I felt exactly like you do. I blinked. You never told me that, I said. We don't tell our kids everything, she replied softly. We just hope they'll understand us anyway. I looked around the little room, at the quilt, at the photo, at the effort. I wasn't ready to forgive them. Not yet. But something shifted, just a little. The smallest crack in the wall I'd been building between us. This wasn't just, they sold my childhood home without telling me. This was. They sold their home too. They let go of their own history, and they were still figuring out how to live with that. Chapter 4. Ghosts on Maple Lane. A few weeks later, I drove past the old house. I told myself I was in the neighborhood anyway. I wasn't. I parked at the end of the cul-de-sac and sat in my car like a creep. The maple tree in the front yard was still there, taller now, leaves just starting to blush red at the edges. There was a new minivan in the driveway, a plastic tricycle near the garage, sidewalk chalk drawings on the front walk. A little boy, maybe 4, ran out the front door, followed by a smaller girl in a pink jacket. Their mother, a woman with her hair in a messy bun and a college sweatshirt on, stood in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, watching them with the tired, tender eyes of someone deep in the trenches of early parenthood. I watched them like someone watching a movie of their own life recast with new actors. That was me and Ethan once. That was my mum in that doorway. The new mum called out, "Stay where I can see you." I smiled sadly. Same line, different generation. I wanted to march up to the door and say, "Hi, I grew up here. Can I come in and see the house, just for a minute?" But I didn't. This was their home now. Ours was gone. Or was it? I thought about what my therapist had said when I'd ranted about the sale. It makes sense you're grieving, she'd said. You're not just grieving the house, you're grieving the younger versions of yourself who lived there. I don't want to let go, I'd replied. I want it to still be there, exactly the same, waiting for me. That's what we all want from the past, she'd said gently. But the past keeps moving forward, whether we're ready or not. Sitting in my parked car, watching a new American family live their ordinary Saturday on my old lawn, I started to understand. That house was still doing its job, holding another set of memories, hosting another set of birthday parties, storing another set of height marks on the doorframe. It hurt, but it also helped. Our story wasn't erased, it was just finished in one place, continuing in another. I put the car in gear and drove back to the condo, back to my parents, back to the place I didn't yet want to call home, but was slowly, stubbornly becoming part of our story. Chapter 5: The Condo Table. The thing that finally cracked me open wasn't a big speech, it was a plate of spaghetti. One Sunday, Mum texted, "Mum, family dinner at our place, 5 p.m. Ethan, I'll be there. Me, maybe. Mum, there will be garlic bread. Me, fine." I walked into the condo and was hit by a familiar smell. Tomato sauce, garlic, parmesan. The kitchen was smaller, but the chaos was the same. Pots bubbling, Dad sneaking meatballs out of the pan, Mum shooing him away. "Sit," she said, waving toward the table. "You can grate cheese." I sat at the same old dining table from Maple Lane, now wedged into a corner of the condo's main room, and started grating parmesan into a bowl. Ethan arrived 10 minutes later with his fiancée, Matt. We squeezed around the table, elbows bumping, knees touching. For a moment, I felt that surge of grief again. This table belonged in the old dining room with its window facing the backyard, not up against a condo wall with a view of the parking lot. Then Mum sat down, Dad sat down, Ethan and Matt sat down. We bowed our heads for grace, like always. Dad prayed like always. "Thank you for this food, for our health, for this home," he said. "And thank you that, no matter where we are, we still get to sit at a table together." I swallowed hard. We ate. We talked. We argued about politics and laughed about childhood stories and complained about our jobs. At one point, Mum reached for the water pitcher and knocked over her own glass. Water spilled everywhere. She cursed under her breath. We all laughed and jumped up to grab paper towels. It was such a stupid, normal home thing, not Zillow perfect, not Instagram ready. Just us. In that moment, something softened in me. The condo was still new and weird, but the people, the voices, the jokes, the feeling of my dad's rough hand patting my shoulder when I made a joke, those were the same. Maybe, I thought cautious Isaiah, home isn't the walls. Maybe home is the table, and the people still sitting at it. The story doesn't magically get neat and tidy after that. I still miss Maple Lane. I still sometimes drive past the old house and feel a twist in my chest. But slowly, over months of dinners and holidays and small, ordinary moments, the condo stopped feeling like an insult and started feeling like a chapter, a new one, written by the same characters. And that, I think, is the real lesson of this American family drama. They sold my childhood home without telling me. And yeah, it hurt. It still does sometimes. But they didn't sell us. They didn't sell the way my dad's laugh sounds when my brother teases him. They didn't sell my mum's habit of humming while she washes dishes. They didn't sell the part of me that knows exactly where the spoons are in any kitchen my parents live in. The house was brick and wood and paint. Home, it turns out, is everyone still showing up at the same table, wherever that table happens to be. Chapter 6. The Storage Unit. If childhood is the movie, the storage unit is the blooper reel. 2 weeks after that spaghetti dinner at the condo, Mum called. "We're going to the storage unit on Saturday," she said, "to sort through the boxes from the house. Do you want to come?" Part of me wanted to say no. If they sold my childhood home without telling me was the main wound, then they put my entire life into a storage unit off I-71. Felt like lemon juice on top. "Yeah," I said. "I'll come." The storage place was exactly what you'd expect in an American suburb. A long row of orange doors, chain link fence, keypad entry. Dad punched in the code, and our unit door rolled up with a metallic clatter. Inside, boxes. So many boxes. Some neatly labeled Christmas, kitchen, books. Some less helpful. Mies. Random? Wow, I said. I didn't realize we had this much life. 25 years in one house will do that, Dad replied. We started opening boxes. It felt like archaeology. In one, I found my old American Girl doll, hair matted, one eye permanently half closed like she'd seen too much. In another, a stack of school projects, a papier-mâché volcano, a fourth-grade diorama of the Oregon Trail, complete with tiny oxen. Mum unwrapped her wedding china, the set she'd always said was too nice to use, which meant it had lived in our Maple Lane dining room hutch like a museum exhibit. "Why did you keep these?" I asked, holding up a pair of sparkly flip-flops from a middle school dance. "I don't know," she said. "You loved them. It felt wrong to throw them away." We sorted into piles: keep, donate, trash, asked the kids. For a while we worked in silence, the sound of packing tape and rustling paper and the occasional, "Oh wow, look at this." Then I opened a box labeled E, room, my room. I peeled back the tape, and there it was. The poster from my high school bedroom, the one of a band I'd obsessed over for 2 years and then suddenly decided was cringe, a shoebox full of ticket stubs, a stack of notebooks with terrible early poetry, and at the very bottom, the thing that finally made my breath catch. A strip of white wood, maybe 3 feet long, with faint pencil marks up and down it, names and numbers beside each one. The height chart. "You cut it out," I said. Dad looked up. "Of course I did," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "The buyers didn't want us to leave marks on the doorframe, so I took a saw to it." He took it from my hands, running his fingers over the lines. "Look," he said. "Here's when you got taller than your mum. Here's Ethan at 11. Here's the year you shot up 3 inches in one summer and complained your knees hurt. My throat tightened. He'd salvaged it, a little piece of Maple Lane. Why didn't you tell me you did this? I asked. He shrugged. I was going to surprise you when we figured out where to put it, he said. Thought maybe we'd mount it in the hallway at the condo, or in your place, wherever you want. Tears blurred my vision. All this time, my brain had been stuck on a loop. They sold my childhood home without telling me. They didn't care. They moved on. Standing in that dusty storage unit, holding a piece of our old hallway in my hands, I realized how untrue that was. They cared. They just didn't know how to include me in their process. Didn't know how to say, we're scared too. We're aging. We're making practical decisions while trying not to break your heart. Can we put it up at your place? Mum asked quietly. On a wall where the grandkids can stand next to your old marks. Keep it going. Something in my chest cracked open in a new way. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We kept sorting. Every time I thought, this hurts because it's gone, I also saw, this exists because we lived it. The house was gone. The memories weren't. They were right here, in my hands, in their hands, in the way we turned old objects over and laughed or winced or said, remember when... By the time we locked the unit back up, the story in my head had shifted slightly. It was still, they sold my childhood home without telling me. But it was also, they saved pieces. They carried them forward. They want me to decide where some of them go next. And that felt different, not healed, but healing. Chapter 7. The Thanksgiving Test. If there's one holiday that screams childhood home in American culture, it's Thanksgiving. Turkey, mashed potatoes, football. Too many people in a kitchen that's never quite big enough. On Maple Lane, Thanksgiving had been a sacred ritual. Mum would wake up at 5 a.m. to get the turkey in the oven. Dad would pretend to help, and mostly just taste test the stuffing. Ethan and I would argue over who had to set the table and who got to make the green bean casserole with extra crispy onions. The house would fill with relatives and noise and the smell of gravy. The year they sold the house, Thanksgiving loomed on the calendar like a test I hadn't studied for. How exactly are we going to do Thanksgiving in a condo? I asked on the phone. You barely have room for 4 people at that table. We'll make it work, Mum said. We always do. She sounded confident. I wasn't. Part of me wanted to bail. Sorry, can't make it. My boyfriend's family invited me to their big, chaotic Thanksgiving in a farmhouse with multiple guest rooms and a golden retriever. But that felt like betrayal, layered on betrayal. So I went. When I walked into the condo that Thursday, the first thing that hit me was the smell. Turkey, stuffing, pumpkin pie. My body relaxed a little without asking my permission. They'd gone all out. The dining table had both leaves in, stretched to its full length, taking up almost the entire main room. They'd borrowed folding chairs from the neighbors. There was a card table in the corner set up for the kids, covered in a disposable tablecloth and crayons. Ethan and Matt were there. My aunt and uncle had driven in. My cousin sat on the couch, scrolling her phone. It was a crowd. in a space that was definitely not designed for crowds. "Hey, you made it," Dad said, balancing a tray of rolls. "Wouldn't miss the condo's first Thanksgiving," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Mum handed me an apron. "Mashed potatoes?" she asked. "I saved that job for you." I took the pot, the masher, the butter. As I worked, muscle memory kicked in. Potatoes, salt, pepper, a splash of milk, lots of butter. Taste, adjust. Mum stirred gravy. Ethan carved the turkey under Dad's supervision. Chaos, laughter, the football game muttering on the TV in the background. For a moment, I almost forgot where we were. At dinner, we squeezed around the table, knees knocking, elbow to elbow. "We need a bigger dining room," Dad joked, "or smaller relatives." "We can't return them," Mum said. "No receipt." We went around and said what we were thankful for, as we always did. Family, health, new jobs, new chapters. When it was my turn, I hesitated. What was I thankful for? Certainly not Zillow. I looked around the crowded room. At my parents, faces softer with age. At my brother, his hand wrapped around Matt's under the table. At my aunt and uncle, passing the gravy back and forth. At the kids' table, where my cousins' toddlers were smashing dinner rolls and giggling. "I'm thankful," I said slowly, "that we still get to do this, even if the walls are different." Mum's eyes filled. "Me too," she whispered. After dinner, stuffed and sleepy, I found myself in the tiny condo kitchen with my mum, doing dishes. "So," she said casually, "how does condo Thanksgiving compare to Maple Lane Thanksgiving?" I considered. "The stuffing tastes the same," I said. She flicked some suds at me. "Smart answer," she said. I leaned against the counter. "It's different," I admitted. "It's weird to not have Dad yelling at the TV from the old recliner. And I miss the big backyard. And the way people would spill into different rooms when it got too loud." She nodded. "Me too," she said. "I keep reaching for the drawer that doesn't exist anymore." We both laughed. "But," I added, "the important stuff is the same." "What's the important stuff?" she asked. "Us," I said simply. "Around the table, arguing about pie." She smiled, eyes shining. "I wish we'd told you earlier," she blurted, "about selling the house. I wish we'd given you a chance to say goodbye. We were cowards." It was the closest she'd come to an explicit apology. I took a breath. "Yeah," I said. "I'm still mad about that sometimes." "I know," she said, voice small. "I'm sorry." I let the water run for a minute. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for saying that." We stood there in the warmth of the dishwasher, the clink of plates, the hum of football from the next room. My anger didn't disappear, but it had somewhere kinder to live. In a condo, not a courtroom. Chapter 8. Building my own home. For months after the house sale, my apartment had felt like a placeholder. You know that feeling when you're staying in an Airbnb that's nice enough, but you're careful with your stuff because it's not really yours? That was my relationship with my own place. The couch was from Facebook Marketplace. The dishes were a mismatched collection from college. The walls were mostly bare because, what's the point? I'll move someday. It was functional. It was not home. I think part of why you're so attached to Maple Lane, my therapist said one day, is because you never really let yourself attach to any place you've chosen for yourself. That's dramatic, I said. I have a lease, I pay rent, I own a plunger. She smiled. I mean emotionally, she said. You treat your parents' house as home and everywhere else as temporary, which makes their decisions feel like life and death in a way they might not if you had your own anchor too. I bristled. Are you saying this is my fault? I asked. No, she replied. I'm saying you have more power here than you think. You can't get Maple Lane back, but you can decide right now to turn your apartment into something that feels like your home, not a storage unit with a bed. Rude and correct. That weekend I did something wild. I bought curtains, real curtains. Not the cheap blinds that came with the place, not the tension rod disaster I'd had in college. Curtains I picked because I liked them, because they made the light in the living room feel warm and soft. Then I framed some photos, not just of Maple Lane, but of people at Maple Lane. Family at the table. Dad in the yard holding a sparkler. Mum in the kitchen laughing, flour on her face. I hung them in my hallway. I bought a rug that didn't match anything but made me smile every time I stepped on it. I painted one wall a colour that would absolutely mean repainting when I moved out. For the first time, I let myself act as if I might stay, as if this little one-bedroom with its crooked cabinet doors and finicky radiator was worthy of being my home, too. The biggest step was inviting my parents over for dinner, not takeout, not a quick bite before we go somewhere else. A real sit-down meal in my space. Are you sure? Mum asked on the phone. We don't want to trouble you. You fed me for 22 years, I said. You can let me feed you once. I made chicken and roasted vegetables and a salad that was fancier than anything we'd had on Maple Lane. I set the table with the plain white plates I'd bought myself, and in the center, I put a small vase with grocery store flowers. When they walked in, Mum gasped. You painted, she said, touching the colored wall. It looks beautiful. Dad pointed at the frames. Hey, he said, that's the picture from your 8th birthday, the one with the lopsided cake. I grinned. Yeah, I said. I stole it from your storage unit. We sat at my too small table, knees bumping, plates crowded. It felt surreal. The people who had defined home for me sitting in a space I had made my own. After dessert, Dad pushed back his chair and sighed contentedly. Well, he said, I'd say you passed the test. What test? I asked. Holiday Hosting 101, he said. We can start rotating now. Thanksgiving at ours, Christmas at yours, or vice versa. Mum nodded. I like that idea, she said. 2 homes, same family. 2 homes, same family. Somewhere deep inside, a knot loosened, one I hadn't known was there until it started to unknot itself. Maple Lane was my childhood home. The condo was my parents' new home. This apartment, slowly filling with my choices and my colours and my messy cooking experiments, was my home. Plural. Homes. The story in my head shifted again. It wasn't just they sold my childhood home without telling me. It was also, I'm building my own. Chapter 9. The Real Conversation. There was still one thing we hadn't talked about: money. For months, it had been this unspoken ghost at every condo dinner, every storage unit expedition, every story about roof repairs and property taxes. One evening in early spring, I went over to my parents' place for coffee. We sat at the table that had now hosted as many meals in the condo as it had back on Maple Lane. "I want to ask you something," I said, fingers tracing the grain in the wood. "And I want you to be honest, even if you think it will upset me." Dad raised an eyebrow. "Okay," he said slowly. "We'll try." "Did you sell the house because you were in trouble?" I asked. "Financially. Did you wait to tell me because you didn't want me to worry, Bobsa, or judge?" They exchanged a look. Mum sighed. "We weren't in trouble," she said. "Not yet. But the house was eating more and more of our budget. The roof needed replacing. The furnace was on its last legs. Property taxes keep going up. Your dad's hours got cut last year. We ran the numbers." Dad nodded. "And we realized," he said, "that if we didn't downsize now, we might not have a choice later. We might end up in one of those panicked sell or go into debt situations." He took a sip of coffee. "I grew up watching my parents lose their house," he continued quietly. "Foreclosure. Sheriff at the door. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again if I could help it." I blinked. "You never told me that," I said. He shrugged. "Didn't want to dump my baggage on you," he said. "But yeah, when the mortgage and the repair estimates and the medical bills started looking like a math problem I couldn't solve, something in me panicked. Selling the house before it became an emergency felt like being responsible, being a good dad. And a good husband," Mum added. "I didn't want to stay in a place that was breaking his back, just so we could say we still had a yard." I sat with that. "I wish you'd told me," I said. "Not so I could fix it, just so I could understand." "We didn't want you to feel obligated," Mum replied. "You're 29. You're building your own life. The last thing we wanted was for you to feel like you had to bail us out, or move back in, or rescue us." "Also," Dad added, "we didn't want you to think of your childhood home as a burden. We wanted you to remember birthdays and Christmas and movie nights, not leaky roofs and stressed out parents with spreadsheets." I thought about all the ways this story could have gone differently. If they'd told me earlier, if we'd sat down with the budget together, if I'd been able to say, "Hey, I don't need an inheritance. I need you safe and stable." We hadn't done that. We'd stumbled through it backwards. But we were here now. "Okay," I said. "Here's what I need going forward." They both leaned in, like I was about to present a quarterly report. "I need you to treat me like an adult child, not a fragile baby," I said. "If you're making big decisions that affect our family history, loop me in. I might not like it, but I want to know with you, not after you." "That's fair," Mum said. "And in return," I went on, "I will try not to make you responsible for my emotional attachment to things you have to let go of. I will try to ask question instead of assuming the worst. Dad smiled. Look at us, he said. Healthy communication, who are we? An emotional family drama story trying really hard to be a healing family relationship story, I said. We all laughed. Then more seriously, I added, and if things get tight again, tell me. Not so I can save you. Just so I can stand next to you while you figure it out. Mum reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Deal, she said. For the first time since the Zillow listing, I felt like we were on the same side. Not parents versus child, not they versus me, us, a family, adjusting to change together. Chapter 10. What home means now. A year after they sold the house, I went back to Maple Lane. On purpose this time. No lurking in the car. No stalking from the end of the cul-de-sac. I walked up the street on a sunny afternoon, heart pounding, feet slow. The maple tree was taller, branches spreading wide like it was trying to hug the whole block. There were chalk drawings on the sidewalk again, a basketball hoop over the garage. The lawn had a few bare patches. The siding needed a wash. It looked lived in, not staged, not frozen in time. The young mum I'd seen before was in the yard, pulling weeds while her kids coloured on the driveway. I hesitated, then forced myself to walk up. Hi, I called. Sorry to bother you. This is going to sound weird, but I grew up in this house. Her face lit up. Oh my gosh, she said, standing up and wiping her hands on her jeans. That's not weird at all. Come in, if you want. We love hearing about the house. I laughed, surprised. I don't want to intrude, I said. I just wanted to see it. From the outside. Nonsense, she said. 5 minutes. You can tell me where all the creaky spots are. Inside, it was both familiar and strange. They'd painted. They'd replaced the carpet. The furniture was all different. But the bones were the same. The curve of the staircase. The way the light came in through the kitchen window. The spot in the living room where the floor dipped just slightly. This was always my favourite room, I said, standing in the kitchen. Mine too, she replied. My kids do their homework at the table right there. I can see them while I cook. It feels cozy. I nodded. We walked down the hallway. I reached out and touched the door frame where our height chart used to be. They covered it up when they painted, she said apologetically. I found the pencil marks under the primer. It felt wrong to wipe them off, but I also didn't know what else to do. It's okay, I said. I have a piece of it. She tilted her head. My dad cut it out before you moved in, I explained. We have it at my place now. My nephew's height is on there too. Her eyes widened. That's really sweet, she said. We stood there in the hallway, 2 women from different timelines, connected by drywall and memories. I hope you're okay with what we've done to it, she said. The house, I mean. I looked around. It looks happy, I said. When I left, I didn't cry, not because I wasn't sad, but because the sadness had shifted. It was no longer, they sold my childhood home without telling me. Everything is ruined. It was. We had a good run here. Now someone else does. Our home moved with us. On the drive back to the city, I stopped at my apartment. I unlocked the door, stepped into my little living room with its imperfect paint job and two big plant in the corner, and felt something I hadn't felt at the threshold before. Welcome. Later, I went to my parents' condo for Sunday dinner. We sat at the old table. We passed the salad. We argued about who would win the game. At one point, I looked around and thought, if we moved this exact group of people into a campsite with a picnic table, it would feel like home. If we were in a hospital waiting room holding bad news and we were together, it would still be home. Not because I don't care about spaces. I do. I always will. But the walls are the container. The people are the content. They sold my childhood home without telling me. That sentence is still true. It still stings sometimes. But it's not the whole story. The whole story is longer, messier, softer. My parents sold the house I grew up in because they were trying to be responsible adults in an economy that doesn't make it easy to grow old in place. They handled it badly. They hurt me. We talked about it. We cried. We apologized. We made new memories at a too small table in a condo that now smells like spaghetti and Thanksgiving and birthday candles. I grieved the house. I visited it. I realized it's still doing its job, just for a different family now. And I stopped acting like home was one address, frozen in time, and started building a life where home is wherever the people I love are still willing to sit down, pass the bread, and listen to me say, for the 1,000th time, remember when. If you're listening to this because you just found out your parents are selling your childhood home, and your stomach is in your shoes, and you feel like your whole history is being bulldozed, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to grieve a house. But you're not losing your past. You're not losing your family. You're just being invited. Without your consent, yes, into the next chapter of the story. It's okay to take your time getting there. Just try not to miss too many dinners at whatever table they're sitting at now. Because one day you'll look around that table, in whatever room, in whatever city, and realize this is home too.